Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
SoundCartel.
From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Tony Gattari is recognised as one of Australia's leading sales experts. In the 90s, Tony was General Manager of Harvey Norman's computer division, responsible for growth from $12 million a year to more than $500 million in less than a decade. Since then, he's written several sales books and has advised some of Australia's leading companies. He's realised over the years that no matter what industry you're in, great sales teams are guided by the same principles. Tony's talking to Chris Ashmore.
There are certain principles of selling, and the principles apply to any business. And I fundamentally operate in 5 main principles. Every time I walk into an organisation on a sales management perspective, I do 5 things really, really well. And usually I have to have the support of management to do this because sometimes it's not their ingrained nature. So the first thing I do is get the sales team focused. Now, what I mean by focused, I predominantly get rid of any activities that they are doing that are non-sales related. A lot of salespeople get bogged down in administration and paperwork, and effectively I leverage them out of doing those activities. I do it somehow. I convince them to outsource those activities. These activities are not making us any money. These people need to be focused to do one activity. Then I effectively train them. And I don't train them just in workshops. I actually listen to their conversations because what you inspect, you improve. So I fundamentally listen to what they're actually saying to the clients. And I don't interfere with that process, but I coach them later on to really challenge them to actually say, I really think you could do this a bit better. Have you tried this? Have you tried this approach? Because although they've got the technical experience, sometimes they don't have the emotional intelligence to read the client and understand what's going on. So I train them and I continue to train them. I'm a huge fan of weekly sales meetings. I am a huge fan of constant ongoing training and developments. Number 3 principle is that I motivate them. Now, that motivation is not done out of fear. It's done out of faith. I encourage them. That's why I've got to have lively sales meetings. That's why you've got to be enthusiastic as a leader. That's why you've actually got to really correct them out of a spirit of love, not punish them out of a spirit of fear. So I really try to motivate them all the time because I realise that selling sometimes can be incredibly hard. So as a sales leader, you've got to encourage and motivate your people. Number 4 principle is I monitor them. I am a huge fan of inspection. Now, usually in most organisations, one of the first things that I will do if they don't have something is introduce a CRM, which is a customer relationship management program, which allows me to track those particular sales. Okay, which allows me to see a dashboard of what's going on. And I am a huge fan of 100% compliance. If sales team members do not wish to actually use the agreed CRM, then they won't have a role in the organisation. So it's effectively that simple. And then I reward them. Now, what I mean by rewarding them, Chris, is that there's an old proverb in sales, flat salaries equals flat performance. My job is to make the salespeople hungry. I mean, they are motivated because they're motivated by what's in it for them. And effectively, I will try to give them a reasonably good base, not too excessive, because if you give people too high of a base salary, they're not motivated as much as they should be. So the base salary is to effectively ensure that they've got their living is sorted out. They can pay the rent and do all that sort of stuff. But what I'm passionate about is an abundant spirit where I put no limits onto the amount of money that they can earn. And effectively, I would have some sort of commission structure which rewards them quickly, because I'm a firm believer the more money you have in your pocket, the more money you spend. It's called Parkinson's law, okay? And you just continue to drive it that way. And that's what I've really, really found. So in summary, every time I've walked in an organisation, I have these 5 little things that I do. And I basically go through them one at a time. The first one is focus. The next one is train. The next one is motivate. The next one is monitor. And the next one is rewards. And what is extraordinary, Chris? I was in construction. Now, when I was in construction, okay, it was a project home builder that was doing 90 homes a year. Within 1 year, we actually did 453 home builds within 1 year.
Incredible.
I basically got rid of all of the 9 salespeople because they were toxic and they were old school. They thought they knew how to do everything, and they looked shit, just not a good look, okay? And I employed people who had a great attitude. Oh, my goodness. And they weren't even from the industry. This is really funny. They were selling $400,000 homes, and they weren't even in the industry. But I had the technical people in the business. And all I did is I employed on attitude and I trained on skill. And those people were severely motivated because they could earn really good money, like $200,000 a year, and they were previous on $60,000 a year. So suddenly they were really hungry. And all I did is I really applied these principles. I wrapped it around a CRM. I gave them a sales process. I trained them on the sales process, and it went nuts. I think sometimes in organizations we actually think we have to employ people who have got industry experience. I don't always agree with that, because I think you need new ideas coming into an organisation and new ways of doing things.
Well, you've done training for many, many years. Has your training or your sales teaching changed over the years? And if so, how?
I think the biggest lesson that I've probably learnt is what you inspect, you improve. I used to think you could train people and they'd get it straight away. You know, I used to say, we'll do the 2-day thing. I will train you and you'll be so blessed and you'll just conquer the mountain. And then what I found out, the reality is that a lot of that training didn't stick because they didn't apply it. So they just turned up, they said they were going to do it, but they really didn't do it. So I've probably become a little bit harder in terms of the application of, okay, prove it, make sure you do it, and monitoring it. So I'm probably inspecting more brutally than I ever have, and I'm monitoring more brutally than I ever have. And I've had to do that because I've actually realised that sometimes we're herding cats, and sometimes we've got to change habits, and sometimes you've really got to ensure that you've got that discipline of inspection and monitoring right through the entire business.
If there was one big sales lesson that you can share from building these businesses, Tony, what would it be?
Probably 2. What you monitor, you measure, and what you inspect, you improve. Because I think they're the 2 big ones. And they're the 2 things that I've seen that in any organisation, if you do that well, I am convinced that you actually get a result.
That was Tony Gattari, Managing Director of Achievers Group. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.